Good evening, everyone. My name is Rudi Page. Welcome to our next program in the series, A Chapter in My Life and Book. This week, we are with Dr. Dwain Neil OBE. And this, of course, this series is in collaboration with Ealing Libraries. And I'm glad to say that Karen Henry is with us today from Ealing Libraries. Karen?
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, thank you, Rudi. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Can't see you. We can't see you.
Yeah, my device is freezing, so
Okay.
I apologize for that. But sound is okay, so
Right.
and I can see you on the other one.
Excellent. Right. So, Dr. Dwain Neil, how are you, sir?
Hi, Rudi. I'm fine. I'm fine. How are you?
Excellent. All is well. Dean, how are you? You okay?
I'm pretty cool in the British, Jamaican, Connecticut weather here.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me this afternoon.
Okay, and we know Donald's online as well. Right, so we're going to be talking about Dwain's latest book, published by Reach Society, Our 10 Years, A Good Mind and a Good Heart Can Do Great Things. So I now go over to you, Karen.
Okay. So Dr. Neil, I'd like to ask you one of a question, which is why was it necessary to create Reach Society?
I'm happy for you to ask that question, and I'm delighted to respond to it. But would it help a little bit, Rudi, Karen, if I were just to say a few brief words about myself in order to give the viewers a little bit of a context?
Yeah,
do you think that would be helpful?
I think that would be the best way to start, actually.
All right, so I will absolutely answer your question, Karen. But, you know, as someone who is approaching the 40th year of being married to my university sweetheart, I'm also in the 4th year of my retirement from full-time employment. And when I do an intro about myself, I always put very high on the list that I'm a father of 4 grown children, 3 boys and a girl. And the reason I find that very satisfying is that as someone who is Black and brought up in the United Kingdom, the next thing they expect you to comment on is the calamity that has befallen particularly your sons and not your daughter. But I'm pleased to say that all 4 of my children have followed in their mother and their father's footsteps, and they've gone on to university, and they are all now working in graduate jobs, even during the COVID lockdown. But a little bit more about myself. The first 21 years of my working life was in Shell International Chemicals, and I will be forever grateful for that, because I arrived in Shell International Chemicals as a scientist with a chemistry PhD and left as a businessman who has worked in leading somewhere in the region of 9 different businesses. And when I left Shell, it was purposeful because I wanted more time to continue doing community activities. So I started my own management consultancy known as Lerico and Associates, and ran that successfully for 15 years. And so I feel my private sector life has spanned at least 40 years, but my volunteering life has spanned 42 years, because in the same year I started working, I also started volunteering. And I'm very happy to talk about some of the volunteering activities I've done over the years. But perhaps the most significant is the one we're going to talk about a bit later, which is Reach Society, which was founded in 2010, with a couple of my good friends, Donald Palmer and also Rob Neal. And there is a context to why we founded the society, but I'm sure that will come out in the conversation. So, you know, it may have been a slightly protracted introduction or bio, but what I'd like to do is to address this specific question that Karen's asked, and that is around why was it necessary to create Reach Society? There are lots of things that people would say why anyone creates something, but there are maybe three key reasons why Donald, Rob, and myself chose to found Reach Society. We felt we had to respond to the need to encourage, motivate, and inspire more youngsters in the modern Black community in order that they would go on to develop their potential and do well. And that need was clear because Black youngsters as a cohort underachieve in the UK relative to all of the other ethnic groups. And I can share some of those stats, not because they lack intellectual horsepower, but they're not getting enough of what they need, in our opinion, in order to develop themselves fully. But we also wanted to be at the tip of the spear in developing a movement of professionals in our community, because one of the things all three of us were aware of is that we have a huge number of people in our community who have achieved, not just academically, but in a variety of sectors. And we wanted to get that movement going in order to showcase those professionals to our young people. And that was a key component in how we thought about inspiring our young people. And I suppose the final reason for developing Reach Society is the diet of negativity that we were all aware of, not just the negativity within our own community because of the lack of confidence, but also the diet of negativity being projected on a weekly basis through the media. And we just felt that that diet of negativity fell well short of the community we knew, lived in, and loved. And so those are our principal reasons for setting up Reach Society.
Yeah, that's a great outline, Dwain. So, so then, what is unique about the society itself? Then?
There are a number of indicators which we would use to describe our uniqueness. And if I could just sort of very quickly touch on them, Reach Society has become a sustainable social enterprise.
Right, okay.
We started in 2010 and we are now in 2021. So we're at the beginning of our 11th year. Most community groups invariably don't last that long in the Black community. And we're sustainable for a very specific reason. When we conceived the society, we also decided we were not going to run it on a begging bowl principle. And by that, we mean we were not going to spend most of our time trying to attract grants from governments, from charities, from foundations, wherever grants may be forthcoming. Because personally, I found that idea demeaning. And I personally felt that our community was far better than that. If we wanted to do something to inspire our young people, then we really ought to have the intellectual horsepower to know how we're going to resource this. And that's exactly how we designed it, and that's exactly what we did. So in that respect, we would say there are few third sector organizations that fund themselves and have funded themselves for long enough to become sustainable. The other thing which makes us unique, I believe, is that after 7 years of operation, we were able to win the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service, the QAVS. And what we can tell you about that is there are very few organizations in the Black community led by a team of Black professionals who have won that national accolade. And for me, that was a wonderful achievement because it was a public statement of congratulations to the small team of 7 rising now to 9 who actually took on the concept, proved the concept, and have grown a sustainable operation out of it.
Yeah, and can I just say, Dwain, what is unique that I've seen from the way Reach operates is that you have an operating model that you've refined very well. And of course,
well,
you would have never got that award if you were not able to demonstrate impact on the community itself. So it wasn't about the impact according to what funders require for their outputs, but real impact on transforming lives.
Well, you're right, Rudi, because part of the demeaning process of being funded by a third party is you have to dance to their tune.
Yeah.
And if you are clear about what is needed and you want to go about it for long enough to make a difference, you can't be skipping from tune A to tune B to tune C, never delivering enough impact, but all the time changing just to try and have something put in your begging bowl. We have not changed our vision from the first we wrote it down. And our vision was simply to make it easy for our young people, boys and girls, to make an emotional connection with the professionals in our community and use that emotional connection to inspire them to choose a pathway to success. And we're delighted to tell you that we have in excess of 500 professionals who regularly get involved in the inspirational events we roll out, not just in London and the Southeast, but now across the United Kingdom. And we can say a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the elements which we would regard as making Reach Society unique.
The other thing I'd like to get across to our viewers and listeners, because we will be broadcasting this show live on Fresh FM Radio London as well from next week and over the coming months, is that it also what's unique about the society is that you've actually developed what we would call a commissioning model, so that if commissioners really wanted to address some of the issues that need to be addressed, particularly amongst young people and their progression, then the model that you've created fits into any commissioning.
Well, it's a matter of how you use the words. A commissioning model, yes, does describe what we do, but put more simply and in terms which I would regard as everyday, we operate a business model. So if somebody wanted our expertise, we would have a discussion with them. We would negotiate a contract. And once that contract is signed, we would deliver on that contract.
Absolutely.
And charge them.
Yeah.
And so that is indeed a commissioning model,
yeah,
but it's also at the core of a business model. We're a social enterprise, so we do make profits, but all the profits we have made have been retained within Reach Society in order to grow the society.
Yeah.
And that is perfectly transparent to all of the many clients who have commissioned our services in the 10 years that we've operated.
And again, it relates to, and I'm laboring on this for good reasons, service level agreements. And again,
service level agreement is another way of looking at it.
Just let me explain the point. That with these service level agreements, your organization again demonstrates that having signed agreements, you keep to them and you deliver beyond them. And this is the important point in terms of the Reach business model, which I think can help many other organizations in our community, because it can be done. And that's really the point I'm trying to get across then, Dwain, is that to many organizations within our community, the pathway to achieving what Reach has achieved, they've still yet to get there.
I'm going to pick you up on calling us Reach, Rudi, because we're
Reach Society. Reach Society.
And if you're going to contract our name, then call us the Society. And there's good reason, and I can explain that later on if time permits. But the point you make about service level agreement is absolutely right, because at the heart of having an agreement with a commissioning agent or a customer is that you've entered into a deal which says, this is what we want of you, and if you deliver that, this is what we will pay you. And therefore, in business, that's a contract. And if you want to stay in business, if you want to continue delighting that client, you deliver on that contract.
Exactly.
One of the things that makes Reach Society comfortable with that is the management team is built around a small number of professionals who understand what it means to be a professional. So we're not interested in cutting corners because we can't be bothered. If we enter into a contract, we will fully honor that contract, and we equally fully expect to be paid. That is at the core of our model.
And I'd like to add another point, a follow on to that is around the leadership and the management. And again, how Reach Society is a model for that collaborative leadership and the management skills to ensure that you make best use of the resources. And those resources, very much, I'm thinking of the 500 professionals who are willing to work with you or have worked with you over the years. Again, I think that's really important.
You do make an important point, which is worth commenting on. All of those professionals I mentioned, and it's 500 and it's increasing every year, every single one of those professionals are volunteers.
Yeah.
They are not being paid to do any of the things they have been doing with us. They come on board because we say to them, we're about inspiring our young people to develop their potential. If you're minded to do that because you can see the need, then we're happy for you to come on board and support our events. Our signature event is our annual careers conference, and that has 4 key features. We have a cohort of role models, and initially it was about 35. It's now in excess of 70, and we're quite happy to grow that. We also have a cohort of exhibitors, and they're disproportionately employers and community groups. And we have those employers and exhibitors because we want to give that access to our young people to speak directly to those potential employers to find out what it is they're looking for when those young people are old enough to seek employment. And we also have what we describe as our Perfect 10 workshops. And those are themed workshops addressing things that we believe every young person should be aware of as soon as possible. Because if they're aware of those things, they're going to be better placed to make good decisions about their futures. And I'm happy to talk about some of those themes if time permits. But we always end our annual careers conference on a high. We always facilitate a conversation between the many young people who show up and high achievers, male and female, in our community who are quite willing to share their hints, their tips about what it takes to become a high achieving professionals. And it's a very popular way to end our careers conferences.
Yeah, thank you for that. Karen?
Hello, sorry, I'm having technical details, so apologies for not being video present. Dr. Neil, what would you say the society has achieved in its first 10 years of inception?
Okay, thank you for asking that, because in many respects, that now begins to speak to why we wrote the book, Our 10 Years, A Good Mind and a Good Heart Can Do Great Things. Thank you, Rudi, for showing it. And for those who are interested in getting a copy,
Yes.
we have it on the homepage of our website. And from there, you can certainly order as many copies as you like. But if we were to address the question of what have we achieved in our 10 years, I would say we've achieved several things, and in no particular order. One of the things we have clearly demonstrated is that within our modern Black community, we are fully capable of taking responsibility for inspiring our young people. We have not just done it as a one-off in a particular year. We do that year after year, and we expand the reach of that impact. Other things that we have done over the 10 years is we have impacted in excess of 20,000 young people. And we have the capability now to impact between 2,000 and 5,000 young people in any given year. That is very much because we have a large and growing cohort of volunteer professionals and a growing list of employers who wish to exhibit at our events. Other things that I would say we're proud of and we've achieved is that there is a strong sense of loyalty from the volunteer professionals who get involved. We're always contacted just before Easter by a number of those volunteers to say, would you like us to be involved again? And invariably, unless there's a good reason, we always say yes. So there is now a sense that this is something that is going to continue to repeat itself, and folks are committing time to do that. The other thing I think we're demonstrating as part of our achievement is the power of sustained leadership. We could not do the things we're doing if the folks on our leadership team were sort of playing the revolving door situation, where we're in a situation now where all barring possibly 3 of the people on our management team were there from the start.
Yeah.
So there is that deep understanding of what we're about and how we've gone about it, and we've learned how to do it better year after year. So that sustained leadership is one of our successes. But, you know, it goes back to the point Rudi was making about commissioning. We're also demonstrating that we know how to resource, use another word, we know how to finance the things that we're doing. And that is at the heart of our sustainability. We will never, to the best of my belief, go to a begging bowl model in the future. Because over the years, we have put money into reserve. And when we started that policy, the ambition was to put between £2,000 and £3,000 each year into reserve. Well, we've been going for 10 years, and I'm delighted to tell you we've exceeded that target. Excellent. In terms of building that reserve. And what does that mean? In the middle of COVID-19 and all the anxiety in the third sector about going under because they can't attract funds, we were just biding our time. Mm-hmm. Our reserve was intact, it wasn't being frittered away, and we're simply waiting for a COVID-free time when we can continue doing the work that we've started. And the other thing which I would say is very important in terms of achievement is we are increasing the number of opportunities that we are attracting or designing that will positively benefit our young people. And I give you just 2 examples. 2 years ago, we were approached by Durham University, and they were very candid. They said, we don't know how to attract Black British young people to come to our university to study as undergraduates. We have no difficulty in attracting Black overseas students, but we don't seem to know how to attract those from the UK. And they wanted our help. And once we were satisfied that they were serious and they weren't just simply ticking a box, we started working with them. And what we're delighted to share is that in the second year of working with them, they chose to roll out a new program exclusively for British Black youngsters. It's called STEP. And STEP is an acronym which stands for Space to Explore Potential. And they have rolled that out despite COVID last year. They were delighted with the take-up of Black students. Many of them were offered, the majority of them were offered places at the university. And only today, I received an email to confirm that 60% of those offered places have chosen Durham as the university to go to once they've completed their A-levels this year. So that program now will be run in a continuous way because they can see it is working. And we are a co-partner with that august university. And for folks who know about universities in the UK, they are in the same category as Oxford and Cambridge.
Okay.
And so, you know, that is the sort of thing that we will do more of. And the last thing I would say is we've combined Grace Foods with Brunel University London to fund full scholarships for 3 young people. And that program has also been, you know, working very well.
Yeah, excellent. Good to hear that. So in the light of what you told us then, Dwain, where will the society be 10 years from now?
Now, you know, that's a very interesting question because it's almost a blue sky question, isn't it?
Right.
And it's always nice to dream a little.
Yeah.
But as someone who's been involved with the society from its inception, I would want to say 10 years from now, we will have achieved 20 years of serving the community, inspiring young people. So one of the things I would fully expect us to have achieved is that we will become fully established in the consciousness of our community across the United Kingdom, because we are already moving very firmly in that direction. We're collaborating with groups in Manchester, groups in York, groups in Birmingham, groups in Leicester, groups in Southampton, groups in Bedfordshire.
Yeah.
And if we continue building on what we've started, 10 years from now, I would not be surprised at all if Reach Society is well known in the top 10 urban areas where 85 to 90% of Black community lives. And so that is one of the things I would absolutely expect us to have achieved. The other thing is name recognition. I would expect a majority of youngsters in the modern Black community will know the name Reach Society because they've either been to one or more of our events or they know people who've been to one or more of our events. The other thing I would expect us to be fully established in is to be a leading social enterprise for growing the number of volunteers from the Black community drawn from professionals, because over time we've increased that number. We will never turn away a sincere professional from our community who wants to help us to inspire our young people. In addition to that, I would expect us to have ongoing, firm relationships with several universities. In past careers conferences, we've had as many as 10 high-value universities take part in a careers conference. And this year we're doing a virtual careers conference and we've got 8 or 9 of them again. So I would expect us to build a reputation with high-value universities, which we will sustain over time. And similarly with employers, because once employers realize that our events are the places where they can attract talent from the Black community, they will continue to show up. Because what I know about employers, if you're good and you demonstrate that ability to be good over a consistent period of time, they will want to hire you. They will want to keep you. And so that is what we will be modeling by building and maintaining those relationships. So, 10 years from now, I believe there should be no doubt about the power of the design that we've gone for, the concept that we've proven, and the fact is we are continuing to roll it out to impact an increasing number of young people in our community.
Okay, thanks for that. And again, you're really outlining the national impact, regionally and nationally, which is really great to hear.
But Rudi, let me just touch on that a little bit. We are very numbers driven. And that's why we've gone to urban areas outside of London. Just a little bit of numbers. We know that half of the Black community can be found in London and the Southeast. So by definition, the other half is not in London and the Southeast. So we had to go to the urban areas in order to impact as many of our young people as possible. We know that there are roughly 700,000 youngsters under the age of 18 in the UK. We know, therefore, that our work is not done by simply impacting 20,000. The vast majority is still to be impacted. So we need to be known in other places if we're going to inspire them. So we're very numbers driven within the society.
Yes, and again, that's a great message for the collaboration, the regional collaboration, which I think is essential to this. I'll come to you soon, Zine, and that's really important. But before we move on to the next question, Dwain, can you just remind us of the dates for the next the Virtual Careers Conference? You touched on it.
Yeah, no, thank you for giving me an opportunity to plug it. It is going to be rolled out over 4 days between the 6th and the 9th of April.
Right.
So it's during the Easter break. It's the Tuesday through to the Friday. Right. And the beauty of doing a virtual careers conference this year, well, it keeps people safe, and that's very important, but it's actually an opportunity for us to reach out right across the United Kingdom.
That's right.
And so we've built a platform with a tech firm which allows us to register 35,000 young people across those 4 days. Now, prior to going the virtual route, the largest number we had at any one event was just over 1,700. And that was like the Careers Conference's 2019.
Yeah, that's right.
But by going virtual, there is a huge step up by using the technology in a creative and robust way.
Yeah, thanks for that. So what is the Society's message to parents and carers and guardians?
Yeah, well, I suppose one of the things I would do to a question like that is to reflect on the fact that I'm a father. And that would be where I would start in terms of the message to parents and carers. In choosing to have children, one of the things that you can do is to remember you are their first teachers. And if you hold on to that starting point, there are just 2 or 3 key things that as first teacher, you mustn't ignore. And one of them is helping your children to read before they get to the age of 5, where they're going into school. And I make that observation because my mother told me that I was a fluent reader before I went into school. And I thought, how on earth did that happen? And she said, bedtime stories. You couldn't get enough of it. And as soon as you realized that the story was linked to the words, you wanted to read them yourself. And I said, it can't be that straightforward. She says, okay. And so when I had my children, my wife and I got into the habit of bedtime stories from the get-go. And would you believe it, Rudi? We saw that magic happening to each and every one of our 4 children. And so I would say to parents, do not be stingy with the bedtime stories from the very get-go. And a complimentary thing is, and my father did this for me and my siblings too, encourage your children to memorize their times tables. It is such a powerful skill to have, because over all of my schooling, and in particular in my primary years, I saw many of my peers, white, black, brown, yellow, struggling with simple mental arithmetic because they just hadn't committed their tables to memory. And so I would say those are two of the things parents as first teachers ought to do. Now, look, we're in the 21st century. Things have changed. The other thing I would say to every single parent, expose your children to IT. Now, that's going to happen almost by osmosis, but they need to be IT literate. They need to be comfortable with the technology, because that is the world they're going to grow up in. In my day, that wasn't a big deal. But when I started working, Shell International transformed the way we work by introducing, you know, all of that, laptops and tablets and PCs and so on. But this is now everywhere. So those are the three key things. And if I had to put a fourth thing as my message to parents, is encourage your children to do at least 2 other activities outside of school. Because in doing those activities, you are helping to build their character.
Yeah.
And if you help to build their character, they're going to learn about who they are long before they're fully grown.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Karen?
Hello, sorry, my technical difficulty still. But anyway, I was also wanting to know, where do you see the Black community in the future, in linking into what you've been achieving and what you're striving towards, as well as other like-minded people and groups like yourselves?
It's such an interesting question, because again, it's another blue sky question, isn't it? I'm guided in responding to that question by someone who I've quoted on many occasions. The 64th Attorney General for the United States is Robert F. Kennedy, and he is on record as saying, "The future is not a gift, it is an achievement." And I came across that saying many years ago, and it stuck with me. And the more I think about that statement, the more I understand the power of what Robert Kennedy said. The future is not a gift, it's an achievement. So if I were going to answer the question of where do I see the Black community in the future, I probably have to say, whatever the future is for the Black community, we are going to have to achieve it ourselves. We are going to have to create it ourselves. It will not be gifted to us. And so it makes me say something else, which I know Rudi is familiar with, and everyone on the management team for Reach Society is familiar. It's all about taking full responsibility for our affairs.
Absolutely.
So if the Black community quickly learns that lesson and take full responsibility for every aspect of the community's needs, the community's wants, the community's ambitions, then the future we will achieve will be one that we will be proud of, because we will know we've achieved it. It hasn't been given to us. And so the flip side of my response is that if our community does not learn the lesson that we must take full responsibility for our affairs, then our future will be awful. It might be even worse than the one we have at the moment, because we will still be waiting for somebody to do for us what I believe we ought to be doing for ourselves.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for that, Dwain. Now, normally what we do at this point is we allow other participants on the panel to have a short input, ask a question. So Dean, you had your hand up earlier on.
First, I must commend Dr. Dwain. I don't know if I can maintain your speech, your tone, because I've always dreamed when I grow up, I want to be just like you.
Thank you, Dean.
Being a person from Jamaica,
It's the first time I've seen Dwain embarrassed for a long time.
When you grow up, leaving Jamaica, going to Europe, or I'm now in the United States, parents say you need to speak proper English. And I said, the only person can tell me that is a real Englishman. You have displayed that type of English. And dealing with Scout and young people, I support whatever you're saying because I have two sons, very proud of my two sons. My father's generation didn't have the opportunity like my generation to go to school, to teach him to read. My father did not have that opportunity. He's the world's greatest dad. We have seven of us. My brother was a bank manager. All of my sisters are physiotherapists. However, although he didn't have that education, that high standard, he provides for me. I see that and I try to change the trend. I make sure my sons, I provide for them. They went to Jamaica College. One becomes an Eagle Scout. And my son is now teaching what you're saying, his son. My grandson at the age of 3, he has his computer, he's reading, and the problem, like what you said, the parent, the father, the mother, there's something that I can teach my child as a father and the mother, it's have to be balanced. So I just want to make that little note. Right. And on a second note, I would like to extend all your program to adopt my little community in Hermitage, because our dream is to have an angel like you to guide, hearing what you're saying. That's what builds the Black community. And I support 1,000% like you, and I'm making an appeal just to talk to our youngsters in the community, because I am echoing the same thing that what you are echoing, but it's a more British, you're saying it in a more British style. Wonderful presentation, sir.
Am I able to comment, Rudi, or not?
Absolutely.
Dean, thank you for those fine words. But, part and parcel of using the English language, I have to thank my parents, because they were born in Jamaica. I came to the UK as a young child, but both mum and dad said, if we're going to go far in the UK, we need to be able to use the language properly. So I can do my little Jamaican patois with the best of them, but I'm not in Jamaica. So I have to use the language that is most appropriate in the country of my home. But the other thing about inspiring the community, I genuinely believe, Dean, it's about leadership. Absolutely. If those of us who understand what's required are willing to put in the time and effort in order to point the direction and to demonstrate what's required, then the changes are going to follow. I say that because we have now a rising number of young people who have come through, go into our events, who've come back and have said in their own different ways, thank you, because of this event or that event, we went on to do this, and they're now young volunteers. So what I would say is, provided there are enough people who understand what's required, who are willing to stand out and lead, things will change. Now, let me not put that in too nice a way. When Reach Society started in 2010, there were lots of naysayers. Most of them were Black. And we smiled sweetly at them and still carried on doing what we're doing.
And carry on.
Now, what many of them do when they see us now is they look down. We don't try and embarrass them, but they realize that they were wrong. And that's where leadership can make the difference. If you're clear about what's required and you're willing to put in the work, things change.
Absolutely. So, Dwain, just before we come to the end, and I'm going to give Karen the last word, as usual, could you just give us a quick synopsis again on the book, our
Sure.
10 years, just so that everybody knows it. This is what this event is about today.
Indeed. Very happy to talk about our 10 years. I would start by saying thank you to the virus. It was written between March and June because we had to cancel all of our large inspirational events. And the question was, what do I do next? Answer, the book you were about to write in the autumn, you should now write in the spring. And so what we always said we would do in the society is we would, with each milestone, write up the account of what we've done. We can't leave our story to be written by someone else. So after 5 years, we had written an account of Reach Society, and we're now 10 years. And so this is about what we've done. And we felt it was important to write it because we have hundreds of photographs from the various events that we've rolled out. So anyone who has a copy of this book will realize that they're seeing a pictorial history of our 10 years. But there are some other significant messages in it as well. When we started in 2010, we had 0 funds, but we were able to convince 2 or 3 large employers to strategically help us. The Royal Navy helped us by providing us with a place to put on our first careers conference, and that was a launch pad. Lloyds Bank helped us because we took part in a fund in 2012 that they were rolling out as part of the Olympics. And we were reluctant because it felt almost like we were being asked to apply for a grant. And they said, no, 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 you're not applying for a grant. You are showcasing what you would do if you won one of the regional competitions. So we did. We wrote up, if we won a regional competition, the funding for that would go towards having a bigger careers conference. And would you believe it? We won a regional competition, £5,000 came to us, and we used that to put on an even bigger second careers conference. And you know, those sorts of stories are important to share because what it was able to tell people if they get copies and read it is that you can plan how you move forward. And then if you're fortunate enough, don't squander those opportunities. Because I was embarrassed but pleased to hear the very person in Lloyds Bank who persuaded us to take part in that competition at 2 years ago, he attended our recognition awards dinner, and he publicly said he did not know that Reach Society was going to go this far after winning that regional grant. And we said, well, why wouldn't we? Because it was a platform which allowed us to do a bit more. Yes. It wasn't an opportunity to squander £5,000 and a lot of stuff we didn't need and didn't know what on earth we wanted them for.
Yes, and another great lesson you're projecting there as well, Dwain, is making best use of the resources that you're given.
Absolutely.
Which again is
absolutely. And the other message which we wanted to convey in the book is that from the get-go, we said the leadership of Reach Society would be volunteers, so that all the funds that we built up would be applied to expanding the work of inspiring our young people. And to this day, every single one of us on the management team, myself included, are volunteers. But I say that with a caveat. Every single one of us are successful in our respective fields. And so we don't need to be paid to do what we're doing. We're genuinely giving back because we know it makes sense. You know, let me just run down a little bit of what I mean. Frank Chinigwando is a consultant surgeon, and he's been with us from the start. Donald Palmer, who I think tuned into this session, he's an immunologist, and he's been working as a senior lecturer, now a professor. He has a career, he has his own income. He doesn't need an income from Reach Society. We had Ralston Dennis, who used to run his own quantity surveying business. You know, we've also got Tony Tiu, who runs one of our 3 main programs. He started working in the auto sector, but now he's got his own renewables in Africa, you know, solar energy business. And so we have talent, all of whom are viable in their own right, but they're involved in Reach Society because they understand this is how we make our community robust. And all of those impacts are measured here. And not to forget our good friend and co-founder, Rob Neil. Rob is not on our management team because he's a very busy bee, but Rob continues to help us with our social media to ensure that important messages are not missed and are picked up. And we are grateful for that because in a sense, he's almost like the invisible member of the management team who continues to be benign and supportive of the things we're doing.
Yes,
so we try and capture all of that in the book. And I shouldn't really end this without saying we have been incredibly fortunate to attract 5 patrons. And
yes,
all
course,
5 are tremendous people. They put a lot of time and effort into helping us. Lord Herman Ousley was the first patron that came on board, and he has been outstanding. We've got Sir Jeff Palmer, who is a giant in his own right, and he is currently outstanding. Marva Rollins, I had my eye on her for a couple of years, and as soon as she retired from being a super headmistress, I pounced and asked the question, would you like to join our group of patrons? And her answer was right, and so she is part of our team. And we have John Budragre, who is a Ghanaian who's lived here for many, many years. He's an entrepreneur, he's a very wealthy man, and we were delighted when he said, can I help? And we discussed it. He came on board, and he has been a wonderful champion ever since. And the final patron is Professor Trevor Williams. He used to be the chief economist within Lloyd's Banking Group. And when he retired about 3 or 4 years ago, he started his own management consultancy, and he is still a strategic contributor to the work we're doing. So we've been incredibly lucky in attracting really proactive patrons who continue to inspire the leadership team. We capture that in the publication as well.
Great, great. Thanks very much for that, Dwain, and it's been a great dialogue with you. And so, Karen, I would just like to last word with you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Dwain Neil, OBE. You know, every bit of that title is well earned. You were informative and showed us what promise we have and what future we have. So it's very appreciative to go and hear all what you say and what your Reach Society can provide to young youth in this society today. I'm glad. So I'm very joyful that Ealing Libraries could contribute to getting you onto this platform with Rudi. And Rudi, thanks again for supporting us, engaging with you and your company to go and make sure that people like Dr. Dwain Neil are shown to be part of a strong and vibrant community and linked to our Black culture as a whole. As well as business-minded people out there, so we can grow a greater youth and society who will go and send ripples down, you know, in 20 years. Well, who knows? So it's like,
absolutely.
So I would just go and say that, you know, in terms of Ealing Libraries, if you want to go and support us, we're available on online because we have e-learning books which are for leisure as well as for learning. So all you have to do is Google Ealing Libraries catalogue and you should get a link to that. So please do. And after a while, after Rudi has had this talk on for a time, it will be on our library's website, YouTube website. So we'll put links up and everything once that's ready. So again, thank you to both of you. And yes, good night.
Thank you, and good night to everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you, Karen.
See you all again soon. Thank you.
And good to speak to you, Dean.
All right, Dean.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yes.